For the last day or so, we've been dealing with the fallout from the New York Post story. Censorship running rampant. Joe Biden's campaign having a massive conflict of interest with several of his staff members having worked for these companies. And now we have two big updates. Senator Josh Hawley has issued letters to the CEOs of Twitter and Facebook. And Ajit Pai of the FCC says he's going to be issuing clarification on Section 230. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat, it's bunk. It's BS. Nothing's going to happen. This is the same thing they do every single time, and nothing happens. Now, look, for Josh Hawley, my respect, I don't think he has the power to actually do anything. Unless the Republicans win back everything, it's not going to change. I want to show you the letters Josh Hawley sent to Dorsey and Zuckerberg. I want to show you what Ajit Pai is saying, and I want to stress nothing will change from these letters. First, let me show you the tweet from Senator Hawley. New. U.S. Senator Josh Hawley has formally requested Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey and Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg to appear before the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on Crime and Terrorism in a coming hearing titled Digital Platforms and Election Interference. In the first letter to Mark Zuckerberg, he writes, Dear Mr. Zuckerberg, I invite you to testify on a date to be determined before the election at the Senate Committee on the Judiciary Subcommittee on Crime and Terrorism hearing entitled Digital Platforms and Election Interference. As your company is no doubt aware, corporations are forbidden from contributing anything of value, financial or otherwise, to support the election of candidates for public office. Accordingly, this hearing will consider potential campaign law violations arising from your company's decision on October 14th, 2020, to support the presidential campaign of Joe Biden by suppressing the distribution of a New York Post article entitled Smoking Gun Email Reveals How Hunter Biden Introduced Ukrainian Businessman to VP Dad. Committee rules require that you provide your testimony and curriculum vitae for distribution to members of the committee and the press at least 24 hours before the hearing is scheduled to begin. Please send an electronic copy of your testimony and curriculum vitae to Jason Covey, and then they give the government email. Please contact him. We have another letter that went out to Jack Dorsey. Hawley writes, Dear Mr. Dorsey, I invite you to testify on a date to be determined before the election at the Senate Committee on the Judiciary Subcommittee on Crime and Terrorism hearing entitled Digital Platforms and Electronic Election Interference. As your company is no doubt aware, corporations are forbidden from contributing anything of value. This is basically what he said to Zuckerberg. He mentions the same thing. He says the hearing will consider potential campaign law violations arising from your company's decision on October 14th, 2020, to support the presidential campaign of Joe Biden by asymmetrically applying its terms of service and restricting the distribution of a New York Post article entitled Smoking Gun Email Reveals How Hunter Biden Introduced Ukrainian Businessman to VP Dad, as well as by suspending the official count of the presidential campaign of Donald Trump for discussing the story. It will also consider your company's decision to double down on the potential violation by, on October 15th, suppressing the Post's follow-up story. Committee rules require you submit your information. Here's the email. Okay, I like what I hear, right? He says potential campaign law violations. Oh, you get him, Hawley. You get him by inviting them to testify. Okay, we may actually get some subpoenas. The Daily Mail reports Republicans say they will subpoena Jack Dorsey over Twitter locking Trump campaign account and blocking users and could target Zuckerberg next. These letters, I'm sorry, mostly meaningless. Unless a subpoena actually goes out and they're served, we're not going to get much. But let me ask you, what do you think's going to happen if they actually do serve Zuckerberg and Zuckerberg and Dorsey show up? Nothing. Nothing is going to happen. It's too little too late. It's a show. I don't think the senators actually have the power to do anything, so I can respect Hawley for trying to do something. Let me just tell you, man, nothing's going to change. Ajit Pai of the FCC had ample opportunity to clarify the Section 230 rules. He did not do it. The Republican Congress people and all these politicians had ample opportunity to do something about this. But you know what? They're all just too stupid. Listen, with all due respect to Matt Gaetz, to Josh Hawley, Thomas Massie, there are several Republicans who have been trying. So they get a pass on this one. But unless we have a consensus and an effort by all of our politicians and officials, nothing will change. And I think this 11th hour attempt at some kind of show hearing won't do anything either. Now, ultimately, I think the real benefit that we'll get from this hearing, should it be televised, is it, one, will Streisand affect the story about Hunter Biden. You're going to see the Republicans reading the Hunter Biden story. And the real strategy may be not to actually do anything with Section 230 or not to actually do anything with any of these, policies. It may just be an attempt to grandstand. Now, that could benefit Donald Trump and the Republicans. It could result in hearings where the story goes viral, where each and every senator then starts saying, in the story, they said this, that, and this. In the story, they said this, that, and this. And it could create positive coverage and negative coverage. Positive for the Republicans, negative for the Democrats. Well, Ajit Pai says he wants to clarify Section 230, issued a statement. Let's read a statement, and then I'll probably be criticizing this. Statement of Chairman Pai on Section 230. Federal Communications Commission Chairman Ajit Pai issued the following statement today on Section 230 of the Communications Act. Quote, members of all three branches of the federal government have expressed serious concerns about the prevailing interpretation of the immunity set forth in Section 230 of the Communications Act. There is bipartisan support in Congress to reform the law. The U.S. Department of Commerce has petitioned the Commission to clarify ambiguities in Section 230. And earlier this week, U.S. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas pointed out that courts have relied upon quote, policy and purpose arguments to grant sweeping protections to internet platforms that appeared to go far beyond the actual text of the provision. Quote, as elected officials consider whether to change the law, the question remains, what does Section 230 really currently mean? Many advance an overly broad interpretation that in some cases shields social media companies from consumer protections laws in a way that has no basis in the text of Section 230. The Commission's general counsel has informed me that the FCC has the legal authority to interpret Section 230. Consistent with this advice, I intend to move forward with a rulemaking to clarify its meaning. Throughout my tenure at the FCC, I have favored regulatory parity, transparency, and free expression. Social media companies have a First Amendment right to free speech, but they do not have a First Amendment right to a special immunity denied to other media outlets, such as newspapers and broadcasters. This may be the most fruitful effort, but please tell me why he didn't do this a long time ago. There's no answer. And that's why I'm not confident anything will really change. And take a look at this. As I look at this tweet from Ajit Pai, you can see Twitter censorship trending in the United States. It's been a problem for a long time. It was first reported on, I think, by Gizmodo, a left-wing publication, pointing out the one-way, the one-directional nature of the censorship on these platforms. So why has nothing been done about it? And why now are we getting these empty platitudes? Elections coming up. They want to act like they're doing something. They want you to feel like it's now or never. I don't respect this. The idea is, hey, if we lose, it's all over. But right here, right now, 11th hour, you better vote us back in. I'm offended by that, to be completely honest. You had ample time to solve this problem. You had 2016, 2017, and 2018, when the Republicans had everything. And did they do anything about it? Nope. And Ajit Pai. Now, he's been the chair of the FCC for some time. Has he done anything about it? Nah. Why should I believe them now? I don't. I think, truth be told, I see a lot of these people and they like how this works. All the politicians do. Like the Democrats, they pretend to be anti-war. They love war. They pretend to be pro-regulation of big businesses. Then as soon as they're getting a benefit, nah. I'm not entirely convinced Republicans want to do anything about this either. I think it's all one big crony establishment game. Now, clarify. I think Hawley cares. I respect to Josh Hawley and Rand Paul and Thomas Massey and Matt Gaetz. But I think for the most part, the overwhelming majority don't care about any of this. And that's why they're going to lose. There won't be Republicans. I mean, think about Donald Trump's positions. He's a moderate. There's no far right. There's no staunch conservatives in office, if you were to ask me. It's a lot of crony establishment rhinos, people pretending to be conservatives, but that opinion's been wiped out. It's been purged. Now we have moderate conservatives and center-right individuals who are making up the most of what we would call the right, for the most part. On the left, you have wackaloon wingnuts who believe ridiculous nonsense and change the definition of words at a moment's notice. Social media allows that. So the change isn't coming. I don't think so. Now, maybe they'll make the change right after getting elected. I don't know. Maybe Ajit Pai will actually do something about this. But I'm sorry if I'm a bit pessimistic on this. Even Trump has been complaining about it. But come on, let's be real. Donald Trump could just sign up for Minds.com or Parler, put out one post, and boom, the whole system changes. So I'm not convinced he cares either, to be honest. Or maybe he doesn't know, and maybe he's got bad people around him, but I'm not buying it. We'll see how it plays out. Maybe they'll get something done. I got a couple more segments coming up in just a few minutes. Stick around, and I will see you all shortly.